can't you see way up in the sky?
Hello internet, my name is Lave. So the trailer for Bill and Ted 3, Bill and Ted Face the Music has recently dropped, so I thought it is time to review one of my favourite films growing up as a kid. I watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So this one is about Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan, two bodacious buddies but terrible musicians in their band Wild Stallions. One day they are visited by Rufus, a man from the future, with a message telling them that if they don't pass their history presentation at school, his utopian future will be destroyed. So he gives them a time-travelling phone box to help them pass their history exams. So Bill and Ted go on an excellent adventure through time. Now please bear in mind this review is heavily tinged with nostalgia. Like I said, I loved Bill and Ted growing up. I had this on VHS and I watched it over and over again when I was like 7 or 8 years old. I have strong memories of my parents rolling their eyes going, "You're not watching Bill and Ted again." And I was like, yeah, but I actually think they should have given it more credit. This is more than just an airhead movie. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I didn't know anything about history, and okay, this isn't an in-depth analysis on historical figures, but it did give me a little insight into some of them, like Napoleon, Billy the Kid, Socrates, Joan of Arc, Sigmund Freud, Abraham Lincoln. At the very least, it gave me a point of reference, like if Napoleon Bonaparte was mentioned at school, I knew that he was the short French angry dude who liked Waterloo and ate at Ziggy Piggy. My point is that it was actually a film that managed to sneak in a little bit of education into my adolescent mind whilst being entertaining, and I do actually think that they gathered a pretty decent cast with some fairly decent lookalikes, like Sigmund Freud and Abraham Lincoln are probably the best examples of that. And who'd have thought that Ted, played by little known actor at the time Keanu Reeves, would go on to become the megastar that he is today. And I always thought that he had good chemistry, and I believed in his friendship with Bill, played by Alex Winter, who I found out whilst researching this review was actually born in London, and I was like, no way. And then of course you've got George Carlin as Rufus, the helper from the future, who I didn't know at the time was a legendary stand-up comedian, but I still thought he was the coolest character despite his very limited screen time. And I've got to mention the actress, Amy Stock I think her name is, who plays Missy, Bill's sexy gold-digging stepmom. In the scene just before Bill's dad goes for it with her in Bill's room no less, there's a scene where she comes in and she brings Bill and Ted some refreshments and she leans over, and it just reminded me of me and my friend at school who would call over the teacher and say, "Oh miss, we're stuck on this little problem here," and she'd lean over and we'd, you know, probably not the most PC anecdote to be telling you, but hey, boys will be boys. Now this is a film of its time, so some of the visual effects are crude by today's standards, especially the early CGI used to render the circuits of time, but the other effects, like what I'm guessing are hand-drawn classical animated lightning effects combined with practical and optical effects, are still really charming. It's just the way it was done back then and is reminiscent of films like Ghostbusters. But the film is solidly made and well put together. I read somewhere that initially there was a 2.5 hour cut of the film, but they wisely whittled it down to just under 90 minutes, which is perfect for teenagers with wandering minds. I don't think it's taking itself too seriously, even though it does try to establish its own time travel rules, like Ted has to wind his watch because San Dimas time is always running, which I never really got because they're in a time machine. So surely they can just travel back to whenever they want. But then it does kind of abandon all of the rules later on. They're saying that we have to go and do this after we've done that, otherwise this won't happen. But then Ted's like, but it did happen, so it isn't taking itself too seriously. All in all, I really enjoyed watching Bill and Ted again. It was a nice trip down nostalgia lane for me, and watching it again, there were a couple of things that I noticed this time round. I think as a result of of watching it on Blu-ray on this 25th anniversary edition, because all of the other times when I watched it as a kid, I was watching it in 4:3 in standard definition. So there were things that I noticed, like Napoleon's legs popping through the tree before in the background. I don't think I ever saw that before. And one thing I always did when watching this on my VHS as a kid was look to see if the other characters were in the booth when Bill and Ted meet their future selves at the beginning of the film. And you can actually see them on the Blu-ray edition. Also, I have no idea who this person is supposed to be when they visit the future and then time travel. Like, who's that? But other than that, the film is pretty much how I remembered it and still holds up. There's probably a few moments in there that wouldn't fly in a PG film today, and a few moments that wouldn't sit well with our ultra PC world today. But other than that, it's good, clean family fun. So that's my thoughts on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. I think I actually preferred Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey when I was younger, but that's because it had really cool robots. I think it might have changed now that I'm a little bit older, but I do need to watch Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey again before I watch Bill and Ted Face the Music. Let me know if you'd like me to review that by leaving a comment down below. Until then, be excellent to each other, and don't forget to like and share the Lave. Whoa.
Subscribe.